Welcome to the Legacy Through Land podcast, where we're dedicated to empowering you on your journey to land ownership and management. I'm Tyler Markham, your host, and each week we'll dive deep into the world of land investing, management strategies, and the transformative experiences tied to owning your very own piece of dream dirt. With our expert guests, inspiring stories, and actionable advice, we're committed to helping you become a better land manager, hone your investing skills, and start building your family's legacy through land. Now, let's dive into this week's episode. We hope you'll enjoy. All right. I haven't decided what my intro words will be, so shamelessly took Matthew McConaughey there real quick. But this is exciting. This is exciting for us. So I'm Tyler Markham.
I'm Javen Mullet.
And we're going to be the dudes that run the Legacy Through Land podcast. So it's my hope that I get to host this podcast more than 90%, because it's fun and it's something that has been aspirational for me for a while, but it's also very much reality that as a small company, and Javen and I work together, Javen works in my company, we're busy. We're a small team and we have stuff. So there's a good chance Javen's going to be hosting this puppy off and on. And I will just have to jealously and selfishly listen from the car. So I wanted to just basically make this first podcast kind of a opener to what we hope to provide here, what we hope to bring you guys as the listeners, and what we hope not to do, what we hope to avoid. But I just want to start out with saying this has been something that has been like something I've wanted to do for a while now, but it's been aspirational. And the thing that always intimidated me about podcasts, and intimidating is a light word, terrified me, was the fact that you've got to be able to consistently deliver. And if you can't maintain the consistency of the podcast and maintain bringing consistent quality content to your viewers, it won't work. It just won't work. So for us, as we've been building a company, we've been building a brand and tirelessly working towards creating greatness in what we do, this had to be a 2025 deal. This had to be a 2025 goal, as much as I would have wanted it to be like a 2023, the week we started Legacy Acres type goal. We had to push it back. And I'm really glad we did, because here we are now. I think this podcast feels a lot like having a kid. You're not ever prepared. You're never prepared, but we are more prepared now. Exponentially more than what we would have been a year ago to haphazardly bring out a product. So anyways, super excited. What we're going to go through today is just like the show structure and what we hope to maintain as a show structure. And if you know me and the word structure in the same sentence, it's a real struggle, but we're going to try and maintain some show structure so that we create a little bit of consistency with what you guys are going to be hearing. And then our biggest thing that I think Javen and I would both say we're excited about is the type of guests that we're going to bring onto the podcast and the type of content that we're going to be able to provide in the land investing space. And, and in a ton of investment space, you've got a really wide latitude of people that are key contributors to making someone successful or making a business successful or whatever it is. But for us in the land space, there's just, to me, some really, really cool, pivotal connections that we've been able to make. And we're fortunate to consider some of these folks our friends. So we're going to be able to bring them on and help you guys as the listeners glean some value and what I would call immensely valuable free value by listening to some of their stories. So I'm really excited about the guests.
Well, I was going to tap into that real quick, Tyler. I think you hit on it a little bit there with not starting the podcast right as soon as you had, initially would have wanted to. But I think right now, with the experience that you've had in the past year, you've had multiple, lots of years of experience, and you'll go into your story in detail a little bit more as far as from your history. But if we would have started the podcast as soon as you started this company, I don't feel like we would be able to bring the value that you have now from the experience that we've had in the past year with what we do in land.
For sure. And I'm obviously going to make you guys, along with you guys, we're going to push Javen hard to get his story out here on the podcast, because Javen has an equally unicorn type story. So it's been incredibly rewarding for me to get to work with Javen, and I consider him someone that obviously can carry a wide load for not just my company, but even me personally. I feel like we've both become really good friends, and we like to work hard. So it's been great to work together. And I can't do this podcast without him. I can't do it without him creating the consistency and actually literally making this happen. So excited to do this together. So I've got up on my screen kind of our show notes for weekly, activity, what we're going to go through. And I want to give this to you guys just as this is kind of the flow that we expect to have. And the thing that I am super excited about in this flow is on the front end of every podcast, we're actually going to give you guys like live updates of things that are actually happening in our company. So just a state of the union or whatever you want to call it, a weekly address of some of the, I would say, shenanigans that go on in our own business of buying and selling land. So that will be a 3 to 5 minute, depending on the chaos story, that will be a 3 to 5 minute update from us. We're obviously going to, give you guys and let the cat out of the bag of who the guest is for the day. And that will be in that, initial portion, who you're going to hear from, what kind of value they bring to the space, and what kind of story you might get to hear. You're going to hear some of our chaos, what's going on in the company. And I'm excited about that section just because it's again, we want to educate and empower and inform and help bolster, belief in you, the listener, in your own journey to buying and selling land. So we're going to talk about the good and the bad and the ugly. Probably the bad and the ugly is the stuff you'll enjoy the most, and we are not going to hold back. So that's going to be that. We'll go straight into our guest introduction, kind of pump them up, and obviously give a little bit of a pre-introduction to their story, how we met them, what the tie, may be. And, and some of these guests that made the list are guests that Javen knows better than me. So they are easily and, equally going to be people he would better introduce than me. So I'm going to, introduce the guests. And then the biggest portion of our show is going to be diving deep into the stories and the, contributory conversation that the guests will have. So what we have done is we've actually built a questionnaire, and we've sent that to the guests. So we transcribe or pre-prepare for each episode with a questionnaire that the guests will pick at least 2 questions, no more than 3, out of a 5 or 6 question list that we have given them that we feel like are some of the most key questions that you might ask, or key story provoking questions that you might ask a guest to talk about in our space. So some of those can be their story, their success story. Some of them can be their failure story. Some of them can be, do they provide a service that you should know about? It's going to be a wide latitude of answers that you may get from those questions, but I feel like those questions are kind of a good, thought provoker for that guest. And it's going to help us stick within the valuable content, with what we're going to bring. So guest discussion is going to be the majority of the show. And then after that, we're going to obviously have some questions for the guest and, ways to connect with the guest. How do you get a hold of them? What's a great way to connect with them? What's an ideal connection for them, or client, or ideal, connection that they'd like to see from you? And then we're going to close it out. Key takeaways. Javen and I, we may have like the epiphany moments of like, all right, what did the guest say that obviously we think is worth circling back to, that should be impactful for the listener to chew on during this week. Outro, see you next week. And that's going to be that. So I listen to a lot of podcasts. Javen, I would think you listen to a lot of podcasts.
I think you maybe listen to a little bit more than I typically do, but yeah, I enjoy podcasts for sure.
The thing that I think my biggest concern in starting one of my own was I'm pretty critical of others. I have and I'll dive into this, but I have an audio background. I used to tour in a band. I'm kind of an audio geek. I used to have a video company, and so the production of the podcast matters to me, a lot, and having a quality product that if someone's going to listen to our episode for 40 minutes to an hour and a half or whatever it may be in their car or on their way to or from work or whatever, like it's time that they're giving us, and I don't take that lightly. And so for us, we really want to do a good job, and we want to try and be organized, and we want to try and operate in excellence. But I will ask from you guys as the listeners, and viewers, give us a little bit of space of grace here in this front end, but we're going to try our best to not be some of the things that have annoyed me in other podcasts where, let's say you've got subpar audio, or you got a guest that you can hardly hear, the room's super echoey, or it's just distracting. I know for me, like I tune it out, I turn it off. Their story can be great.
Well, I would add to that as well. Like as a producer, from a producer aspect, like we want feedback, like we want even if it's bad feedback, like we want it so that we can improve and do better, and create a different a better product for the listeners.
Yep. So if you're listening to this now, you have been nice enough or gracious enough to give us some feedback before these go live. We will be sending this out to a, inner circle, if you will. And we'd love to hear your constructive feedback. But I guess the things that I'll go through really quick before we jump right into, I'm excited to tell my story. That's what we're going to start this first week's, episode out with is, who am I? And how did I get to the crazy space that we are in today? And I've tried to write down notes of kind of the things that I think are pivotal, turning points, if you will, in my career that have landed to where we are today. But some of the stuff I don't want to do with our podcast, and I want you guys to check us on this is, we're all about having fun. We're all about having a good time. We're all about joking. And for me, that's, my life. But I also respect that there's a disconnect between a viewer and, let's say Javen and I joking around with another person on a podcast. We're all having fun in our little 3-person inner circle, but to a viewer, it's just wasting time. It's not fun. You're disconnected. And I see that a lot in podcasts, and I want to try to avoid that. It's not that I don't want to, have us tell jokes or whatever, but like, if we're all going to talk about inside stories that only we 3 know for 20 minutes, you're just hijacking the viewer's ability to connect with a story. And I want to try to avoid that. So that, and I don't just want to have folks on the show that just feel like we could just kind of kick back and, crack open some sodas, if you will, and tell a story. Like, it's got to be an impactful story. We're going to try to do a good job of vetting that. And I really believe that we'll do a great job with that so that the content's good. So, if mine sucks, then I guess I'm going to have to eat crow right out of the gate. But, I've been excited to do this. So if you guys don't care, let's jump right into it. Who am I? And we'll get into, how do we get to where we're at today? Before we do this, Javen, you got other thoughts that we may not have covered yet?
No, I think that was good. I think, like you said, we're going to go into your story, and I know you have lots and lots of information and experience that a lot of people can learn from. And even me, I feel like there's going to be things come out probably here today that I don't know that could be helpful for where we are going moving forward. And for your experiences in the past as far as real estate. I think there's just a lot to uncover and unpack with the experience that you have, and I'm excited to hear it here as well.
Well, we're going to do it. We're going to jump right in. Guys, forgive me if you already know me and you somewhat know my story, and you may think, well, we're jumping around a little bit. This is kind of just my almost 2-hour brain dump of who am I? How do I think that that's formed me to today? And can we, bottle this down into an episode that's actually impactful for you guys? So let's start at the beginning. My story probably starts like a bunch of your guys's if you are outdoors women or men. I was an outdoorsman, and as a little boy, that was my deal, being outside. I come from a generation that we weren't, like, at least I wasn't a video gamer. Like I wasn't. Never played video games hardly at all. I was always building something. If you take my mom aside, I was always, stealing lumber from the garage and building tree forts or taking things apart and putting them back together. And I was always into something. My mom always thought I should be an engineer, but figured out when they had to do math that I was like, yeah, no, I like to make things, but I don't really want to do math. So This is a little fun fact just to go into, career professional wise. I always love to tout this one, but I have never worked for anyone else. I've never had a W-2 job outside of in high school. I was a co-op student is what they called it. Basically an internship with a local business, and you would get credit for that in high school, and the business could pay you, a nominal amount. But I will never forget, I worked at a welding school, not a school, welding, a company that worked on oil field trucks. They built oil field trucks, customized them, put the tanks on them. And it was, all this welding. And, I had to physically punch a time card. Like I literally had to punch a time clock in and out with this thing, and it punched it. And if you're listening to me, you do one of those, like Godspeed to you. But that sound made me physically sick. Like it literally made me sick.
How old were you at this point?
This would be high school. This would be senior year. So I'll back up a little bit to like childhood, but like I knew by then I for sure wasn't cut out to like work for someone else. I knew, I guess I didn't know it as clearly as I do now, but that always comes to mind that was the only time I ever worked for someone else, was then. So I did that for like 6 months, after high school.
And you realized you are an entrepreneur.
Yeah. Like, and Javen, you will love, this will resonate so much. The worst part of it was in the fall, like it was like, you'd hit this cold October afternoon, and here I was, these garage doors open in this big factory, welding on trucks. And I, tooting my horn a little bit, I got good at welding. So I got good at it. So they would have me weld a lot of things that higher paid guys didn't want to weld. I was laying upside down, welding what they called headache racks, just, nonsense welding all day. And when the cold would hit you and it was like, you could feel that buckiness in the air, I was like, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here. So like, I literally can remember smelling like oil, wearing my Dickies outfits, straight to the farm, change into hunting gear, and getting a tree, as much as I could. And I think that alone just was like, yeah, you probably need to do something where you can make your own schedule, because you don't like to be told where to be. So, never worked for anyone else. I have to thank my grandpa for my outdoor love. And I would say a lot of you, hopefully have this similar story where someone has helped raise you, around the passions that they were passionate about. And for me, it was my grandpa. I can remember like being taken on his back, like him carrying me rabbit hunting at probably 6, 8 years old. And that's how I got into hunting. And I would go coon hunting with him and his friends. And I can remember like laying in these hay fields, waiting on these dogs to, tree a coon. And we're just looking at the stars. These are like 60, 70-year-old men. And here I am, like a 9-year-old at 2 a.m, laying in a hay field, looking at the stars of these guys. Well, I thought like, if this is hunting, like this is amazing. I'm in, like this is great. Wait till the, you got to be patient and quiet part comes in on deer hunting. That was where I was like, oh, snap. I don't know about this. So kind of backing up, I was born with clubbed feet. So I say this just as a, the only way to help you resonate with what that is I'm the real life Forrest Gump. I was born with clubbed feet. So when I was born, my toes touched my shins and were like really, pigeon-toed in. So I had the Forrest Gump braces on my feet. When I was 2 days old, the doctors broke both of my feet. My mom can tell you that was the sound she's just never heard in her life. And I say all that to say, I'm like the most active person I know as well. So it's a real weird combo there. Have cramped feet, pain in my feet all the time. Like when you think of flat-footed people, I'm like 4 clicks past that. Like it looks like a Bigfoot print on the beach when I walk. It looks like you're chasing a real life Bigfoot. There is no arch. I've never had an arch ever. So
and this is something, Tyler, that there's nothing that people notice from it now, I don't think. Right. But is that something that affected you growing up as a kid?
100%. Yeah. And, my closest friends would say, oh, yeah, we know. I have super skinny legs. So with club feet, the Achilles tendon is tighter. In a clubbed foot person, it's tighter. So the upward motion of like my toes they're never going to go any higher than they do now. And so the muscle on the back of your leg, like that calf muscle, just doesn't develop. Like my cousin has this as well. And so we always, mutually joke about each other, but it doesn't develop. So like I can put my hand around my ankle, like above my ankle. I can close my hand. This is how big my ankle is. So there's a point to all this. Being as active as I was, and as a kid, like I never let anything slow me down. Like I didn't care. I can vividly remember like the first 3 days of West Virginia gun season, I would always stay at my grandparents' house. And by the time I was like probably 11 or 12, I was able to hunt on my own. Like they had trusted me. I was safe. Like, I was out on my own. And I would walk so much that I literally couldn't walk by Thanksgiving dinner. Like I couldn't walk. I would be like limping to the table. I just didn't care. Like I didn't care, like it just never registered to me that like people let things that are a physical ailment define what they do. Like I never cared. So point of clubfoot and like, what does that matter is because I was doing sports. I really loved soccer, really loved football. Like, honestly, my love for college football now is probably because I couldn't play football at the highest level. Like, I just couldn't. What started to happen is in 8th grade. So 6th grade, I did track, I was fast. I did the, 4x100 or, 100 meter, 200 meter, like all the short stuff. And I remember doing like a 1600, 2400, like the longer. And I wasn't as good as those, but I was fast. But I literally, after track practice, I could not walk. Like my feet felt like 1,000 needles were going into both feet. So I kind of knew. So by 8th grade in football, I kept having the fluid pack behind my kneecap would burst. Every time I would go in, get tackled hard, 8th grade middle school football, fluid pack breaks behind my knee. It's called the bursa sac. It would bust. Knee swells up like a softball. And that happened twice. And, at that point it was like, sports is probably not going to be like the defining thing for you, my man. Right. It just probably not. So here comes hunting, that's kind of where the progression for me of like the just absolute infatuation with the outdoors became, because I could kind of control, the pace. So, that's the point of like, what does clubfoot matter? Still deal with it today, but used to race motocross back in high school. I did motocross as well, and that became too much impact. I could tell I wasn't going to go pro at that. Like I wanted to go. I could tell it wasn't, physically, I just wasn't gonna be able to do that. So it was almost like this, this weaning out effect. Nope, can't do sports, can't do like high impact sports, can't do motocross, but you can bow hunt. Like you can climb a tree and you can bow hunt. And by 15 years old, that was the absolute epitome of all I thought about. So,
I love that. And I think that's a testament just back to just, being an outdoorsman and bow hunting in general. It's just such a broad perspective or such a broad, perspective of who can do it. And there's so many different levels of it that anybody can get into it if they want to. And I think that's beautiful. I think, hunting has helped so many people, and hearing this in your story, that probably helped you a lot, in aspects that are hard to even explain. And I would have little things like that in my story too, of how hunting helped me. But I think that's beautiful.
It truly, yeah. Like getting to later in life when I almost got so burnt out with hunting that I started to be scared of like, could I be losing the one thing that I have found so much peace and joy and fulfillment and just, connection with God. That's a story for another day. But so, hunting, I mean, this is kind of where my journey as an outdoorsman starts. And then I'll obviously get into my career as a professional, but, I can remember vividly when I turned, 15, I got a truck. I got a 1994 red Chevy Silverado regular cab V6 baby, but it had the Bulldog gear. So don't give me crap. And, you diehards will know what I mean, man. That thing would climb a tree. Now it wouldn't get there super fast, but anyways, got that truck at 15. And of course, as a 15-year-old boy, all you do is like work on your vehicle and do stuff that's, that's it's your only sense of belonging. Like it's your only thing. When you're 15, you don't own anything. You don't have anything. So when you own a truck, it's like you'd sleep in it every night if you could. It's your deal. So by 16, when I got my license, I had my license for a day, and I'm pretty sure the next day I was crossing the bridge into Ohio from Ripley, West Virginia, where I'm from. I was crossing the bridge to go and hunt. My grandpa owned 22 acres down along the river in Ohio. And we would always go there and rabbit hunt as a kid. As like a young boy, I'd go there and rabbit hunt with him. It was super brushy and super thick. And of course, as a bow hunter later in life, you're like, dude, duh. Like, you remember that jungle you would go bow hunt that had go rabbit hunt and had all these why were these trees all rubbed to death? It was like, ding, 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 dude, there's giants here. So when I turned 16, I literally I started going across the river to Ohio to hunt every chance I could get, every chance. And I hunted that 20 acres like it was 2000. It was some of the most defining, pivotal, those lessons you learn in hunting that they just stick with you forever. Like the first time you get blown at by a really big buck and he stands there and stomps at you like at the first morning daylight and he's at 41 yards and you probably could have shot him, then he leaves. Like that happened to me on this 20-acre piece as a young teenage boy. My grandpa had a beautiful farm that was 200 acres in Ravenswood, and I hunted there as well. But once I got a taste for Ohio, man, I left that 200 for the 20 happily. And I was knocking on doors trying to get permission. This is, when people talk about you just can't get land anymore. I will challenge you because I'm still doing it today. I started at 16 and I was knocking on doors trying to get permission to the pieces that were adjacent to my grandpa's little piece. So that was where my Ohio and kind of bow hunting isms and all that just really took off, was then. And most of this is on film. Javen, let's pause a second here. I want to hijack what could be part of your story, but do you remember your first bow kill? Do you remember your first bow kill?
Yes, for sure.
Now, bonus points. Was it on video?
No, it was not.
Well, I can't find it. I don't know where it is. Maybe if Adam Poling would listen to this, longtime great high school friend. Adam Poling and I were bow hunting so much. I have so many people to thank that I could just name on this podcast that were like my dudes in high school that they were bow hunting before me. And I was always gun hunting, right? I was gun hunting everything you could gun hunt. My dad wasn't a bow hunter. My stepdad was kind of he was a really, really busy, successful lawyer and then circuit judge by that time of me getting into bow hunting. So my dudes at high school got me into bow hunting at 14 or 15. I just heard them one day talking about bow hunting and it was like, okay, let's go. All right, I'm in. So Adam Poling and I go, finally to get, what's the point of all this? I have my first bow kill on film somewhere on a VHS. He's in a climber. I'm in a climber, 2 trees apart, the most classic 4-banger, 4-pointer. Here's the best part. I smoked that thing in the femoral artery at probably 20 yards, I don't remember. Dude, if we even knew what a 200-inch buck was at that point, we killed it. It was, I will never, ever forget it. That feeling of shaking, I don't know that I ever shook like that in any gun hunt ever, any rabbit or squirrel hunt or anything ever leading up to shooting a deer with a bow. The shakes that only someone who's experienced them knows I'm talking about. We both, you could see our breath. I can vividly remember this. We're 16 years old. So anyways, at that point, dude, the flame was lit. You know what I mean? It was put outable, whatever the cool word is there.
Once you get that taste of that in archery hunting, yep. It's just, there's nothing like it.
It's I'm addicted to winning, I want to win in everything I do. I'm addicted to it. And when we won in that moment, it was like, oh my gosh, I want to do this again. That was you just want to do it again. And lucky for me, all my West Virginia hunter buddies, you can kill $17 in West Virginia legally. Side punch there. So we were back after it. I think I wounded 5 more bucks after that because I didn't realize that climbing a tree 37 feet to get the scent issue fixed changed your shot angle too much, and you had about a 2-inch kill zone up in a skyscraper. But all right, I've digressed. Let's jump back to what happens after 16 and all that jazz that gets us into sort of, professional career and all that. I was always a drummer, when I couldn't do sports and I couldn't do like the high impact stuff, couldn't do motocross. I was always a drummer, always played drums in the church, played drums in bands. I was always a drummer, still a drummer, today. So I got the opportunity. I just knew I was going to go tour in a band. I had been in all these bands in high school and some of them had done well. And if we had stuck with it, we probably would have toured ourselves. But long story short, my parents are kind of like, hey, you're going to college. Like, this is what we do. Like, you're going to go to college. We love that you think your band's awesome and that's all great. We love you, but you're going to college so you can be like a gainfully employed person in the world. And I was just like, look, I'm going on tour with the band. Like, I know I am. I'm going on tour, period. That's it. I know this. And this is a God thing. This is a total spiritual thing. This chapter of my life had to happen. And it was an amazing chapter. But I was enrolled to go to college at Belmont University in Nashville for recording engineering. I had gone down there. We had done the whole dance. I was, I was a smart student. I was class president a couple of years somehow. I think, I didn't want to be class president senior year of high school because I realized they would have to do stuff. So then I told Jamie Casto, like, you should be class president because I'm told the senior class president, like, you have to plan like senior trip and all this. And I was like, not interested. So I was class president, maybe sophomore and junior. I mean, who doesn't vote when it says Markham for president? Like, come on, it's who does. So anyways, go to, graduate high school, smart kid, all that stuff. Enrolled to go to college at Belmont University in Nashville, Tennessee for recording engineering, do the whole dance. And I'm supposed to move in like 4 days prior or after this pivotal event that I'm going to tell you about. I got a call at 2 a.m, like 5 phone calls from a buddy, Tyler Davis, who said, hey, this band wants you to try out. Like, they just lost their drummer. It's a crazy thing. They're going on tour like next Thursday. They're on a major record label, Christian band. Do you want to do it? And I literally went in. Whew. And I woke my mom up and I said, I don't know what's going on, but I need to try out for this band. They just told me they want me to try out. I learned their songs on an iPod. Like, literally, this is before, streaming music, 2007. Don't even know these dudes from like anyone. Never even heard of them prior to this. And go to Huntington, West Virginia, try out 3 days later for that band, make it. 3 days after that, I'm playing my first show with that band, which the band is called Our Heart's Hero. So if you want to go blackmail me, I was in Our Heart's Hero back in what I would argue was their heyday. And our first show was with Red in Michigan, who was a band that I looked up to immensely in the Christian music industry. And here I am, an 18-year-old kid now in a green room with the drummer with Red, trying to act like we're on the same level somehow, and that I shouldn't be like, hey man, can I have your autograph? We're opening for you, but like, you're my idol. So fast forward, man, I had, we did a ton of shows, like 200 shows. It was the story of my life. I obviously didn't go to college. It was a really, really cool chapter. And I know that God allowed me to do that because I wanted to like see that. I wanted to experience that. And I know he allowed me to experience it to see some of the things I did, but that will be, that's not part of today. And the whole time I was on the road, I would work construction because we were broke. Like, we were the opening act and we were on a major label, but we were broke. And I would I would do construction. When we were back, I would do construction. So it kind of like, I was always handy. My grandpa was always handy. I was taught to be handy. You don't pay anyone to fix anything. You do it yourself. So I did construction when we were off the road, and I actually framed and helped build most of my parents' home now. So it was a really cool experience because I worked for the contractor that they had hired. So, 100, I don't know, probably almost 200 shows later at 19 years old, I was like, look, there's two things that aren't happening in this band anytime soon. I've realized this. Number one is sleep, and number two is money. And I've realized also that I like both of those. So I love you guys, but I'm out. And I left. That was that. And
you said about 200 shows, but how long a period of time?
Year and a half.
Okay.
Year and a half. Yeah, we did some really big tours during that period, really major tours with like tons of big name Christian bands at that point. I mean, I made friendships in that, chapter of my life that are still with me today that are insane. Like if you're in the Christian music industry, you would know about a lot of the bands we toured with, but some really big names. So if you're really into Christian music and you're listening, Toby Mac was our manager. So that it was his record label that we were signed to, called Goatee Records, and Toby Mac was our manager technically. So yeah, like we saw a lot of the industry, and honestly, unfortunately, most of it wasn't awesome, but we saw, parts of the industry that I know God wanted me to see, to try and show me like, hey, you can have the limelight, but it sometimes doesn't mean that I'm actually in the light in what's going on. So, yeah, sidebar for another day, but through all that, I literally would miss sleep. I remember getting off tour one night at like 2 a.m. in Ashland, Kentucky. This is not a joke. I remember it vividly. It was the first day of gun season in West Virginia, which is always the Monday of Thanksgiving week. I literally didn't sleep. I drove from Ashland, Kentucky, home to Ravenswood, West Virginia, showered, got my hunting clothes on, got in a tree stand, shot a 146-inch buck that day. Black hair, lip ring. Like if we could pull the picture up, I would show it to you. But, yeah, it was the real deal. And my bandmates were always like, dude, I don't even know why you want to be in this band. I'll never forget this. We're still buddies today, but he's like, I don't even know why you want to be in this band, because you just want to hunt. Because like when we were going through like Iowa, we were going through like all these banger like Midwest states on tour, I would jokingly, like at every big thing, I'd be like, so like, do you have any land? Like, do you know of any land that like, are we buddies? And they were all like super fed up with it. They weren't hunters. They didn't get it. So yeah, I missed sleep and shot that deer. Then we would go back on the road like 2 or 3 days later. And, that deer was in the local newspaper. And it's not actually one of these up here, but it would make the cut. But, anyways, I just kind of knew like, this hunting passion thing, it hasn't stopped. Like it hasn't stopped through all the other stuff you've done. It hasn't stopped. And, after touring on the road, it gets us to kind of where do we get to today? This is always a funny transition. I started doing legal video depositions. I had a video production company after getting off the road. My mom was like, you know a lot about audio and video. You should see what videographers do. My mother is a court reporter and she recently retired, but she was a court reporter for a long time. And, she's like, you should see what videographers do. And I was like, I'm good. Like, I don't want to wear a suit. Like I still have a lip ring, black hair. Like I'm going to record bands now. Like I'm good. And she was like, well, they make $75 an hour. And I was like, yeah, that I'll do. I'm in. What are we doing? Where is it at? And what are we doing? So, legal video depositions, to shorten that 7-year journey, is the most boring thing in the entire world. And if you're listening to this and I've met you through that, I'm incredibly sorry. But as a legal videographer, you're like lower than the janitor in the room. You've got attorneys in there talking about cases and asking all these pointing questions. And, it's just, I'm recording to a DVD. I'm videoing someone that doesn't move for 8 hours. That's all I'm doing, and trying not to lose my mind. So I did that for 6 years, learned how to run a business, grew a business. We had like 6 full-time videographers. Molly helped me with the production and creating DVDs and, producing bills and all that.
And Molly is your wife?
Yes. And Molly is my wife. Smoking hot wife. Anyways, a little cameo, but, we did that for a while, and honestly, like hindsight's always 20/20. I was making 6 figures in my early 20s, working 3 days a week. And here's the cool things, how does this tie to hunting and business and coolness? I had expensive camera gear that was paid for by the other company that I could write off, right? So I could video all my hunts, and I had time. Generally, I had time because I could still make $40 an hour subcontracting the job out to another videographer and just doing the production. So if I wanted to hunt or wanted to be missing, I could still make money while I was out. Bada bing. But you know what mid 20-year-olds do, or 20, I've probably sold the business to my mom at 26. They just make rash decisions. So I sold the business to her when I was fed up enough. And we transitioned into real estate because, that's a direct correlative translation, right? That's, that makes total sense. You go from legal video to real estate investing. Like that's what people do. It's simple.
Let's step back a little bit.
Sure.
You mentioned Molly, and your wife. What year did you get married, or how old were you?
Oh yeah, we're going there. Molly and I got married at 20 years old. It's always easy to do the math because I'm 36 now and she's 36. She's older than me, but by 3 months, but she's a cougar. We got married at 20 and, August 7th, 2009, 879.
So during that whole where you were doing the video work is when you got married.
Yep.
Yeah.
And while I was on tour, Molly went to Marshall University, and the band that I was in, Our Heart's Hero, the headquarters, technically, all the dudes were from the Huntington, West Virginia area. So I would see Molly when we were back on and off the road, but that was a rather difficult time for she and I. Because I was, sweaty and nasty and loading in equipment in random states that I didn't even sometimes know where I was. And then I had to be at the next show by 6 a.m. and we're going on 4 hours sleep. And I'm already irritable if I don't get 8 hours. Like I'm already irritable. So she hated school, hated being there, hated being on campus. It was not a great year and a half. So when we got serious and it was so funny when I asked her dad first, ask her dad, can I marry her? I'll never forget him just pacing the garage. He said, wow, like 70 times. He was just like, wow. And we'd been dating for like 100 years. So it wasn't even, but it was so funny. He's like, you got to ask her mom. We go inside and Lucinda's like, oh yeah, that's fine. But here's the rule. If you guys get married before she finishes college, you're taking on her college debt. So I'll never forget that. And we did. She got a nursing degree. She passed the boards, passed the RN, the whole 9 yards, did the nursing deal she commuted from where we lived in Ripley. We had bought a small house and of course started fixing it up. We're handy. Don't know anything about a deed or a mortgage or any of that, but we figured it out. So we fixed up a little house in Ripley and we were married at 20 and she finished school by commuting to the Marshall campus over in Point Pleasant. And I did legal video depositions. And I killed stuff and I would film for Jury Outdoors and I got onto there like I shot it with my PSE and that was all during the early 20s era. I was on there a couple times, so that's when people think I'm jury famous.
So you did the video depositions for another about 5 years after you got married until your mid-20s?
We did. Yeah, we did video depositions. It's always a blur, but we did that, until, we went full-time in real estate in 2015.
Okay, that was my next question. What did you do right after AIM?
Yeah, 6 years. It was, 6 or 7 years. So it would have been 2009 to 15.
Mm-hmm.
So, I've always been in sales, always been a salesman. I was selling dirt bikes on eBay when I was in high school. I was mowing yards in 5th grade. I was always making my own money. I always have made my own money. And I think that made this whole you're an entrepreneur. Like you don't even know what that word is, but you're definitely one of them. And it's still hard to say and it's even harder to spell. So yes, that is a fact. I just let ChatGPT spell it, but, that all getting into doing legal video, it was like, number one, I watched my mother, who was a business owner, be a business owner my entire childhood. So that wasn't this incredibly heavy lift. It was just I just thought that's what you did. Like when people would tell me no, I want to work for so-and-so or do this or do that. I'm like, forever? Okay, whatever. That's awesome. I don't I've started 7 companies in my head since you said that. So, I'm just a dreamer. I just am. And I think those are the juices that God gave me, to make the world go around, I guess. You got to have these dreamers that go out and create chaos, who then help.
All kinds. I like it.
Yeah. And then we got to have doers like you. We got to have doers who actually get stuff done to rein us in. But yeah, so that was that period. Then we get to 2015 and now we're kind of getting to the meat, kind of getting to the goods here of the last decade of my professional career. So leading up to 2015, I've always been in sales. I even did Amway for a while. Some of you may know me through Amway. Honestly, it was a great experience in my life. I did Cutco knives as well in high school. And maybe right before I toured in the band, I was really good at Cutco knives and did the sales of Cutco knives. That actually might've been after being off the road, but I was really great at them. And if you have them today and you bought them from me, they're great too. And I know they're great. They're in my kitchen right now. They're the best. Cutco knives. Go you. You could sponsor our show. We're here.
There we go.
Dishwasher safe, American made. But I've just always been in sales. And so the idea when I started to put my finger on, okay, so we're handy. We know kind of construction stuff. I wouldn't call myself a contractor, but I kind of know how to do some stuff and I'm handy. And I love sales. The idea of like, if you got into real estate and you could sell one thing and have like one transaction that could make you potentially a lot of money was like, yeah, man, that's what I want to do. Like, let's do that. So it was just this, I got hyped up on YouTube. You know how in the winter, like everyone like starts 17 things because they're just sitting on the couch and they just like watch YouTube with stuff and then they convince themselves they can do it. Well, this guy was doing that with wholesaling real estate, like wholesaling properties. I was learning about guys that are like the middle people and like, the gurus that wholesale. And that was tail end of 2014. In 2015, Molly and I, we said, look, let's flip a house. Let's just buy a house to flip. Let's flip one. I kid you not. I wish I could go into a deeper version of the story. If you guys go snoop at Tyler Buys Houses on YouTube, it lasted for a hot minute. We got tens of views. It was a big thing. I did a video about like my first 3 deals in real estate. Go watch it because the first deal that I did, I'll give you the short version. I was literally putting out Sharpie blank signs that said, "We buy houses." Like they were super ugly and loud. We would put them at street corners and they said, "We buy houses, cash." And the S was a dollar sign because we were ultra cringe, right? On purpose. Well, long story short, my first deal in real estate, we made $46,000. We bought a house. We never touched it other than clean it out, clean it up, put it on the market, sold it for sale by owner and made $46,000. And the light bulb was on, dude.
That was another first deer moment right there.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Add the deer shakes. Like
Yeah.
I always joke about this now because, hindsight is so pivotal in your life, but we thought we were convinced we were going to be awesome. Tarek and Christina had just kind of been a thing. And we were like right there with them. Like we were going to be next. So, pride always goes before the fall. And, our next 2 deals, we made great money, but basically in the tail end of 14 and in March of 15, we flipped 3 houses and we made like $75,000 or something in these 3 deals. And we sold the legal video business. I sold it. I went cold turkey. Like I'm out, I'm done. I'm doing this. We're clearly going to be like multi-gabillionaires. This is it.
Okay, so you did a few real estate businesses or deals before you sold the video business.
3 months we did both. 3 months. Keep in mind, I could have hired a general manager at the legal video company to just run the thing, kept it, and done real estate as well.
You had just been bit so hard by the real estate thing from those couple deals that you were just all in. Yep.
Yeah, and I'm not a great multitasker. Like I like to crush one thing and then like that's it. I'm done. I don't crush anything else. And so that's what we did. We sold the business. My mother bought our video arm from us and then added that into her her video side or her court reporting side of her company so that they would hire the videographer and the court reporter all kind of in one thing. So that's what happened. And, we took right off in real estate. And, here's the best part. The next 7 or so deals we lost. Actually, the next 3, I want to say, this is all back in Tyler Buys Houses days. If you guys go watch that, we lost like $75,000 after the, making of $75,000. So we had some real quick, what do you call that? Hardening.
Had you guys hired anybody at that point already, or was it just you and Molly?
No, it was just us. Like at that point, it was just me and Molly. And of course we had a contractor buddy. Shout out to Mikey Bryant if he listens to this, but we had a contractor buddy who was a friend and we were just kind of like the triple man crew here. Mikey and I did the flips together and Molly was getting her realtor's license at that time. So she became a realtor. She was doing the interior design and we were just like, literally, dude, the Tarek and Christina, like we were just, a thing. And, it was a good time. We have learned a ton. So kind of, fast forwarding here, cause I don't want to shorten some of the Legacy Acre stuff, but fast forwarding from 2015 to 2022, tail end of 2022, in 7 years, we flipped over 300 houses. We bought and sold and flipped over 300 houses. And at one point in our company, which was originally called Trademark Investments, and then it was Trademark Home Buyers. We had projects going in Huntington, West Virginia, and Vienna, West Virginia, 2 hours apart, and Ripley, West Virginia, and Charleston, West Virginia. We were the West Virginia takeover at one point. 3 project managers, marketing director, transactions coordinator, me, the guru, whatever you want to call me. We had multiple realtors helping us. It was a machine. I mean, we had built a machine, and I learned a ton through that process. A ton through, obviously structuring deals, raising money, creative financing. I learned just a ton at that. Those periods of my career were probably the most defining chapters that have led me to today. And we didn't just flip houses. We built a mobile home park. We bought a mobile home park. We sold both of those things. We had Airbnbs that we bought, renovated, the homes and put them on Airbnb. And we, invested in multifamily assets, and I was always in real estate mastermind groups and, taking education that way and being around folks that were doing a lot more volume than us. But I easily, if we did a calculation, have spent at least $250,000 to $500,000 in coaching along the way, along the journey, in just different capacities of being part of groups and being part of things that, I was stupid. Like I wasn't that smart. I just worked hard, but I would get in these groups where I was like the dumbest guy in the room. And then you could, your mind would just be open to all these new things. I'll never forget. And we'll pause here a second. I'll never forget going to our first mastermind event. Molly and I went to our first mastermind event, and I didn't even know what a mastermind was. Like I was like, that's a really cool word. Like that seems awesome. But we went to this mastermind event in Pensacola, Florida. It was with a group called 7 Figure Flipping. Some of these folks are some of my dear friends today, Alan. And at the time, it was a guy named Justin Williams was the head of the thing. But we went to this thing, and like they would have you be on a hot seat where you'd go up and talk about 3 things. Like, what are you good at? What do what are you struggling with? And what do you want to, what are your goals for the next year or whatever, and I'll just never forget, like we listened to like 3 or 4 people's presentation before Molly and I had to go up, and like we were in the hallway and we were like, okay, we are stupid. Like we are so dumb. What in the world are we even doing here? Like we don't even, like, we're not even in the same hemisphere as some of these folks. And that was obviously pretty defining, to say that and then continue to grow like we did, of just looking back at like how inept we felt getting into a space like that. So anyway, we can pause there. Now we're into real estate. Yeah. What is that? Anything come to mind of that?
Yeah, I mean, I was trying to follow along, exactly with that. Tell us a timeline of the years again. So you started doing the house thing in 22?
Yeah, we started the house thing in 15,
and then towards 22, because you said from 15 to 22, about 300 houses. Yep. And at that point, I think you had a fairly large team of people that was working with you. And like you said, you just created the machine of having to feed them, real estate deals or houses. And I feel like something like that was a learning experience for you, right? And there's so many, large takeaways that you can take from that. But I did like one thing you mentioned there was that you didn't feel like you were super smart about it, or you're not super smart guys, what you said, but you worked hard and you're willing to work. And I feel like in so many ways of entrepreneurship, just in general, that's who wins. Like at the end of the day, like you can't look at failures as just that. You can't look at it as a failure. It's just a stepping stone. It's a learning experience to the next thing. It helps you later on in life. It could be now, or it could be, it could be fairly quick in the future. It could be a long ways off, but that's a great way to look at it. It's as a lot of other people, successful people say, you got to outwork a lot of your competition. And that's really what comes down to it. Are you willing to put in the work? You don't have to be super smart. You just have to be willing to work and learn.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I was actually at a breakfast just yesterday, and the gal I was at breakfast with was like, you got to stop saying that you're not that smart. Like, look at your career. You are that smart. And and I appreciate that. Like, I hear that, but I just surrounded myself people that were really smart. I surrounded myself around people that were just way smarter than me. And, that was how I leveled up. That's how.
Well, and that's a good point, because I feel like being smart is relative, right? Relative to your perspective, the room, exactly. And because looking out, or from outside looking in, I mean, even from inside now, yeah, I think you are smart with a lot of business decisions and a lot of things that you have going now. But how did you get there?
Yeah.
And that's by working hard and being willing to learn from people that are much smarter.
Yep. Yep. So, this has been kind of, obviously, to say we flipped 300 houses and did all the things we did and put that in a 3-minute window. Of course, that's short tracking what we did, but what I feel like, I'll tell you kind of how the end of house flips happened for me. And I want to preface all this by, I know me. So like, if this comes out and then in 2 years I'm flipping houses again, no one's allowed to sue me, because I plagiarized myself. I currently have no appetite for house flips. Zero, zilch. It's insanely wild for me to say this, but Trademark Homebuyers is dead. So if anyone watching or listening or snooping or whatever was like, oh my gosh, I always wondered. Yeah, no, they're dead. Like, we actually killed the LLC literally last year. It doesn't even have a bank account. And that is insane for me to say. Insane. Because that was our thing. Like, everyone
knew us for years,
a decade. Everyone knew us. I shouldn't say decade. It was 7 years, whatever that time frame was. It's everyone knew us from that, though. Like, we built the identity of that. I built myself, as a career real estate guy through that, and through the try, fail, adjust, try, fail, adjust. Mm-hmm. So get to 2022, 2023. This is kind of like, this is where I probably had one of the largest shifts in my personal career, professional career, all of the above. And so that's what we'll dive into, and then kind of what leads us to today. I honestly hope this hasn't been too long for any of you. Hopefully this has been enjoyable, but I feel like I need to be able to resonate, and you guys need to be able to resonate with me as a real person. And that's why I felt like it makes sense to talk about our stories. And hopefully Javen gives us all the flavorful stories about growing up on a veal farm that I want to hear. Because we're real, like, we're real people. So let's dive into like really pivotal chapter now for me was what I would call the demise of being a house flipper guru guy. So late in 2022, we had expanded to Columbus. And now I'm not only personally involved in Ohio, because I've always had hunting farms and I've always been in Ohio. And I was always a closet Ohio State fan. Okay. For anyone listening, I've been in fandom forever. Okay. Just with one eye around the corner. I'm a Marshall fan first, because Molly went to school there. We are Marshall, go Marshall. Matthew McConaughey, but I'm actually like more Ohio State now. Anyways, we have land in Ohio. I'm hunting in Ohio. I'm spending all this time driving across the bridge to Ohio. I've now expanded the business to Ohio. We had hired an acquisitions representative in Ohio. We were buying and selling houses in Columbus. We're like doing the thing. Like, we had expanded. And that was all because, like, man, it just felt like, and I've got to be honest, if you're listening to this, like, our Trademark Homebuyers journey in West Virginia was good. We never thrived, though. We always survived. We just never thrived. And I would take some of the blame myself for some of the decisions we made, or just some of the trajectory of how the business went. I would take some of that on my own shoulders, but I also would really take that, man, it's just not that big of a market. West Virginia just wasn't that big of a market. It wasn't growing. People actually leave West Virginia more than they come there every year. So that was a factor in our decisions. I remember coming home one day, having been in Columbus for like the third day in a row. I'm going belly to belly with sellers with the acquisitions rep I'm training. I'm, answering calls on the way home and putting out fires the whole time. And I'm answering calls from our acquisitions rep in West Virginia, and I'm answering calls from Molly. And we're like, I'm in the trenches every day. And I remember just coming back like that third time that week. And it was just like, what are we doing? Like, what are we doing? We are only sleeping in West Virginia. That's what we're doing. I'm sleeping here. I have connections here. Like, yes, it's all, here it is. It's a thing. Like, we live here and we're from here and all that. But like the opportunities across the river that existed, and Javen's dying. So I'm just going to have fun with this. Everybody watch him. He's here. You want some of my water? Here, you have some of my water. Need any?
Dang, I need some water, dude.
Excuse yourself.
I may have to take a break and go drink.
So I'm going to keep going because he can just black this out. But, I just kind of like, it was just, man, this heavy moment. I'm staring at the windshield, and I'm sure I cried tons of times, but I was just like, I think we've got to move. I think it's time to make some really hard decisions in our life. I don't love how things are going. I don't love the person I've become. I don't love the machine that I've built. I don't love how much appetite this machine has with versus how little output it's giving me. I don't love it. I've created a very hungry machine, and honestly, not to throw anyone directly under the bus just yet. I'll do that on a later podcast, but I had taken some really bad advice in real estate. Honestly, I'd taken some very bad advice from several people, even in the mastermind sector, even in just relations that I had built. I had just taken some bad advice in real estate that I feel like caused me to chase some of the wrong things that created this really, aggressive, hungry machine that wasn't spitting out a lot of money. So, let me dive a little deeper here so that you guys can resonate or at least understand what I mean by a hungry machine. At the peak of our company in 2022, if I go through our org chart, we had an acquisitions rep in Ohio. We had an acquisitions rep in West Virginia. We had a full-time transactions coordinator. We had a full-time lead intake who answered the phones and worked leads. We had a full-time marketing director. We had a full-time COO. We had two full-time project managers who managed the house flips. We had me that attended all closings, raised money. I was obviously the face of all things, putting out fires everywhere. We had Molly working in finance, doing our finance, and all this is full-time W-2. I'm pretty sure we were close to $80,000 a month in payroll coming out. So we had to sell at that point. We had to sell 10 houses a month to like be happy at all, like to be like, really cutting it in the teeth at all. We had to sell 10 houses. So it's just a super, super, super hungry machine. And had we built that in Columbus, in hindsight, like had we had built that in a market that is a little obviously more stable and aggressive and built to handle that size of a team, we probably would have done fine. But we also had a lot of loose systems, and we just had problems that when your market isn't spitting a ton of margin in the house volume in West Virginia, which was still, even having expanded to Columbus, we were 80% West Virginia in flips, 20% in Columbus. It wasn't an aggressive market, getting multiple offers after the 2021 COVID spike. After that, getting multiple offers was not a thing in West Virginia. Much. So, I just started thinking, man, I think we're going to have to move. I really do. And I also think, I don't know that I need to do this anymore. And I also had a couple employees come to me who are still dear friends today. So I'm not throwing anyone under the bus, but I had some employees come to me and they were like, hey, we've gotten an opportunity, individually, all of them. We've gotten an opportunity at our old employer, one of them that I just can't pass up. I'd like to go back to them. And it was like, all right, so we're losing them. Okay. And then this one's like, well, I got this and this kind of came up, and all right, so we're losing them. And then, it was like this trickle effect where like 3 or 4 people were quitting out of our 12 to 15 person team in like a month. And I was like, okay, I'm exhausted, right? Like I'm worn out already. We're going to have a big paradigm shift here and new training and new hires and all this stuff that I know costs time, money, and energy. I don't have to do this. I don't have to buy houses anymore. I don't like buying houses right now. Like it's not fun. It's not fun anymore. So this is at the same time we're moving, by the way. This is the same time we're moving. We've already decided to move.
So you had decided to move before you, decide to shut down the house thing?
Yep. Oh yeah. Cause that's what I do. I like to inflict a lot of chaos and then just add in a move.
Yeah, that's something that I wouldn't have been aware of, that you guys had decided to move before you sold her.
Yeah, it gets better. It even gets better.
Cool.
Yeah, so we decided to move, obviously, and that was to bolster, like, hey, we're going to grow this thing. And I got to say, like, I've got to sidebar to my wife for a second. I'd love to have her on the podcast sometime so you guys can get her perspective of what it's like to live with a person of chaos. But she has always trusted me. She has always believed in me. She has always been there for me. She has always, literally, if I did something or said, like, if I came home and said, hey, like, I think I want to build, buy a skyscraper, she would be like, okay, yep, I trust you. Like, as long as the numbers are good, I think it's good. And that's not a joke. That's literally not a joke. So when I came to her with, like, hey, I think we're going to have to move from everything we've ever known. I think we're going to have to move from our families who live 2 miles apart, both of our in-laws. We're going to have to move from basically our hometown that's 30 minutes away and very convenient. We're going to have to move from our church we love. We're going to have to move out of our friends group and our life group and my men's Bible study and my office I spent $500,000 renovating in West Virginia the year prior. We're going to move from all this. I think we're going to have to move. Like, I want you to know that's the kind of trailblazer I am. And I could cry, and we haven't gotten to any of my emotional, belly tickers here yet. We might, but nobody ruled that out. But that's what God instilled in me, was like this it's like this insatiable desire to be great. And I knew we're about to embark on like the wildest chapter of our lives, like the wildest season, that we thought West Virginia and Charleston and like all the things that we'd created, we thought that would be a book, and it ended up being a chapter. And that is wild to say, having done all that. So we start making massive shifts. I kid you not, Javen. We could pop up pictures. Javen and I don't want to over edit this podcast. I want it to stay real, but like I could throw up pictures of our West Virginia office that we created with the all glass walls for the conference room, and everybody had their own, office space. And we $70,000 for stucco on the outside. I mean, we spent literally $500,000 renovating the structure, and I moved out of it. And I was working from home in my basement in the tail end of 2022, navigating some of the darkest chapters, trying to figure out like what is next. Cause I wanted to put a tenant in there. That's why I went ahead and moved out, was I wanted to put a tenant in my space so that we weren't just bleeding out that, money and that debt service there. So we started leasing stuff out, and we had started letting people go, and my team got smaller, and then it got even smaller, and it even got smaller. And as we were going to move to Ohio, I had a shift and said, hey, we're only going to focus on multifamily. Like, we're going to go into commercial real estate. We're going to get out of single family real estate. I'm tired of the machine that it is. Spoiler alert for most people. Most single family house flippers are ginormous liars. Okay. Ginormous. They don't make near the money you think they do. They lease the Corvette or the whatever that they're driving. Like, and I'm not throwing any individual under the bus, because I know who the fake ones are and I know who the real ones are. Most are mega, mega fake. And I was tired of being one of those. I was tired of being like, I didn't have all those stupid accolades or all this, I wasn't a guru, but I was tired of feeling how fake we were. So I said, well, let's get out of single family. Let's get out of single family real estate and let's go into commercial real estate. Like, that's where the real wealth is. I've flirted with it. I know a little bit about it. I've tickled around with it. Like, let's just immerse ourselves, because right now I have something back that I haven't had in 7 years, which is bandwidth, margin. I don't have people that I'm paying. I don't have all the payroll that I did. I don't have people nagging at me, asking questions or figuring out if we can structure this deal, or, why we're over budget on the 700th house in a row that we were over budget on. Like, I don't have all that. So I can think with clarity right here in my basement, and like, let's make some decisions. And it was like, I don't play chess, but it was almost like I could decide my next move finally. And it was such a beautiful piece of clarity in that season. It gets funny, but I just said we're doing multifamily. That's what we're going to do. We're going to do commercial real estate. We're going to focus on multifamily in Columbus. Columbus is, one of the most growing cities in America. Let's focus on multifamily. That's all we're going to focus on. And that lasted 4 months, maybe 4 months, because every single deal that I would analyze, every deal I analyzed fell on its face. None of them made money. None of them made sense to buy at the numbers they were asking. None of them seemed like a deal. None of them seemed like they would immediately cash flow and actually make you money. None of them. So, and this was because rates went from 3% in 21 or low twos. Shout out to you guys with low twos. Go you.
Mm-hmm.
It went from low twos to 8%, in rates, like in 5 months, 6 months. I'm not a data guru, so rebuttal me, everybody, but it went quick. Well, so all these deals start falling on their face because the market, they still want what they want, but you couldn't pay what they were going to ask and mortgage that property because it didn't make any money. So I was getting exhausted quickly with I kind of think I hate this. I kind of think I hate this stuff. I'm trying to like the idea of we were meeting property management companies. We were touring 300 unit complexes, me and Hannah in Columbus. We were doing all this stuff. We were in multifamily mastermind groups. We were having multifamily mastermind lunches and dinners and doing the thing. And the whole time I'm meeting property management companies and doing these things that are what you got to be good at running a apartment complex doesn't sound fun to me at all. Actually sounds terrible. I actually could puke. So paradigm shift again during our move, literally during me picking my family up and moving it. The other epiphany comes. And I think I was on a farm one day and I was probably crying, just walking in a farm. This is shed season. This is just that time of the year where it's just kind of butt ugly outside. Us as hunters, we all love it because it's you're planning to the next year. But I'm pretty sure this epiphany was why not? Why wouldn't you do land? You love land, just why not? You could do what you're doing right now on this farm. You love this. You could do that. And you can, because you have all the cards in the deck that you've not had. You didn't grow any staff with the multifamily stuff. You didn't build systems or, build a robust company about multifamily and commercial real estate. So you can still do whatever. Legacy Acres Land Company, 2023. That's how it started. God, I was always terrified, Javen. This I'm sure you will resonate very well with, that we know people, and I know people in the outdoor industry that would tell you, never get in business inside of your passion. Never do it. Right? Heard it so many times.
For sure.
One of my greatest mentors, and I'm not going to shout him out here because we're going to have him on the podcast and I don't want to blow my cover, but he was in the business in the outdoors, and I was in my 20s, doing the legal video thing. And I was able to go out in Illinois and help him hang tree stands. He was an outfitter for a minute and he had an outdoor business, and the dude was doing the thing. And I remember him telling me his biggest regret was getting in business in his passion, because it would ruin your passion if you got in business for it. So I was always terrified of that, and I don't know. God just gave me this clarity of but that's not what I meant. That's not what I meant when I said you could do this. And when I said that you are in love with land and you've always been in love with land and you're closest to me in land and you talk to me the clearest in land and you made this land, I think we can do a new thing. And so, 2023, I said, hey, we're shutting the blinders down. We're going to shut all cool things down. And, I'm sure you got some questions, so I'm going to stop for a second.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really cool to hear that, because those are some of the details that I didn't even know as far as the commercial side of things, and I think that's how God works, right? If you want to bring spirituality into this, as far as those epiphanies and those key moments that you can point back to and say, this is the direction that God is taking me. And I think that's really cool. And it comes back to the passion that you first picked up, when you shot that first deer with the bow, that's inside you that you can't get out.
Yep. Yeah, I couldn't.
That's
really
that's where it's at.
Through even touring in a band at the highest level, couldn't shake my love for hunting. Miss sleep to go hunt. Through racing motocross as a teenager, couldn't shake my love for hunting. Through could have done sports, couldn't shake my love for hunting. And so in 2023, we embarked on a journey that was me a dream, and my assistant Hannah, who is really Javen can resonate. She is the back office for everything that actually happens that's good around here. Hannah was coming in with me during house flip days. Then she came in and she actually toured these multifamily assets with me and came in to help me and be my personal assistant during our multifamily transition. We started Trademark Holdings Group for like a hot minute. Like this is just so funny how this, comes back. But she, just like, hey, typical day with Tyler, like, oh, okay, cool. We're like completely shifting what we're doing. Awesome. Like, do I still have a job or what are we doing now? So
we can't give her enough credit. She gets credit for a lot of things.
Yep. She's actually doing real things while Javen and I are goofing off here on the
We're having
podcast.
fun goofing off.
As we speak. So, all right. So, what really, for me, what I want to say is, we get to Legacy Acres Land. Getting there, you've got a guy who's always loved the outdoors. You've got a guy who's been infatuated with hunting, who spent hours, and I've spent a lot more time. I'm 36 years old today, but I've spent a lot more time in the woods. I've been able to, because I've always worked for myself. I've always worked 120 hours a week to keep from working 40 hours a week. That has afforded me always the opportunities to have more seat time. I'm absolutely no expert, but Legacy Acres has been an incredible birthing of, I know how to structure deals. I know how to do sales. I know how to buy, assets off market. I know how to communicate with sellers. I know how to actually care about helping people navigate hard chapters in their life, like selling a, potentially multi-generational farm. I know how to deal with real estate stuff, right? I know how to set up farms for hunting. I know what people actually want. I'm not just a, investor guru who has no idea what the real pulse is of hunting and recreational land. And I know how to connect, and I know how to build relationships and how to grow a team and all those things. And that is how we get to today.
Well, that's circling back to the whole thing of not failing, but making so to speak, failures into stepping stones and moving forward. I mean, that's really what you get out of the land or the house flipping days of your, journey.
Yep.
Is the learning curve with real estate and deals and sales and so many aspects, doing the numbers, even if you don't, think you're great at it, it's something that you learned.
Yep.
While you were doing the house deals, and so many aspects of it that then tie into what you're doing today still. I think that's awesome.
Yep. So, it's funny. I put kind of notes or show notes here of some of my stuff, but we've literally just rattled through it without me even needing to do this. But, I would say to any of our viewers, and if you've listened this far, I appreciate it. We're really excited about where we're going with this thing. But what I want this podcast to be is a outlet for me and for Javen and for our guests to actually be able to share real, raw, actionable advice, real raw stories, real raw failure, real raw success. And I will require us to manage the level of, this isn't going to just be an echo chamber podcast for everyone to come on here and be like, well, I've just always been successful in everything I've done, and I've never lost money in real estate. I had a guy tell me that 2 years ago. I've never lost money on a deal. That's why? Because you're not as aggressive as me. You don't lose money because you're too picky. You don't lose money because you're not as aggressive as me. I've lost money on deals, but I've made a ton on the ones that I have been aggressive and gotten. So I don't want this to be an echo chamber for us to bring on guests that are like, well, I just bought a farm, made $7 million and just really didn't know what I was doing. That's not going to be helpful for you listeners. It's not. And that's not my story. A ginormous amount of failure is in my story. A ginormous amount.
In so many ways in other things in life too, the failures are where you learn the most.
100%.
And that's, I think, what we can bring value to.
Yeah. And so that's what I want to talk about. Like, we don't have it figured out today, but here's what I'll say about Legacy in 2023. And even just last year, our first full year as being a business and, proving the concept and growing. And of course, we're lucky enough to get someone like Javen, and we're lucky enough through that to get his wife, Cheryl, to help us. We've got a team of 4, and we got to shout out to Prodigy Braden Scott, the Prodigy. We have a team of, let's call it 4.5. He's a big dude. We'll give him 5. So we have a team of 5 that are, some of us full-time, some of us part-time, right? Capacity. And in that, with relatively low systems. Okay. We got a lot of dreams. We got a lot of aspirations to make it better. And we're every day working on making it better. And we will tell you about that, but we don't have it all figured out yet. But still yet through that, we've bought and sold over $6 million worth of land. In last year alone, we sold like $3.8 million of land in 2024. So what do I want to bring to this community? Like, I stopped counting after 300 plus transactions, but I'm probably over 350 transactions in real estate. And some of them, and Javen has heard of some of them, even through Legacy Acres, have been humdingers that are only put together when you know what you're going, know where you're going with the deal structure, know what you're after. And I actually care, if you're listening to this, about helping you create a legacy through land for your family. That's why we called it the Legacy Through Land podcast, because I believe it all starts with dirt. I believe it. You can be a person of faith or not, but they ain't making it anymore. So we want to help you figure out, because let's all just bring this out in the open. The barrier to buying ground right now is greater than it's ever been. And spoiler alert, it's not going to get better. So what I want to do with this podcast is actually empower you to take on and slay the giant, which is buying your own piece of land or honing your real estate investing skills or making yourself a better land manager, all the above. That's what we want to accomplish here. So, that's for me, the stuff I wrote down is I want to teach better land management tactics. Javen and I and the guests that we're going to have on, we're all infatuated with how to make your land better, make your experiences on your land more enjoyable. We want to actually talk about that. Also, we want to call out the BS. Like I want to call out the stuff I wasted time and money and effort on. And, the rhetoric. And then for me, it's just, we want to foster like a sense of community in the hunting space here on the podcast and through the podcast community, where we can talk openly about failures and successes and all the things that come with having great experiences on your land. And I'm not just, I'm a hunter, but like, if if you want to buy land to go camping on it, like you're still in the right place. We got you. And I want to create a fun environment for us to discuss things. Like if you want to come onto the podcast in the future and we could actually discuss a deal, or you want to email us or DM us a deal that you've got and how we could even just live spitball a deal structure to help you put something together, I would love to do it. Sign me up. Definitely do that. And this one's going to sound cliche, but I actually want to help you and your family realize the dream, the American dream of owning your own dirt. Like we actually want to help you do that. So that's something that's a passion of mine. Of course, shamelessly, selfishly, I would say we'd love to create an environment where real estate investors or potential investors that would like to get started in passively investing in land alongside of us would feel like they're working with some dudes that are rubbing some brain cells together. So I want to create a space where if you're sitting here listening and you're thinking, gosh, I'm sick of the volatility of the stock market, and I'm sick of, the up and down of the things that I'm doing, or I'm sick of my traditional financial planner and I'm not going to call any firms out, but my very run of the mill financial planner, reach out to me. We invest people's IRAs and self-directing 401ks and thrift savings plans. We invest all this stuff in real estate alongside of us. And as they go to bed, they're making a rate of return and they don't even touch the stuff. So reach out to us if that is something you want to talk about. But that's pretty much me to here. We've skipped, which I'm happy. We skipped the emotional roller coaster of what that journey has looked like and some of the hard decisions that have been part of making that decision. But I'll cap it off with this. I moved my family to Ohio. I believe in the state of Ohio. There's 29 million acres here. Looked that up on Google a while back. There's 29 million acres. I believe in all the opportunities that Ohio has to offer, and I'm betting on me, and I have been betting on me. And I don't look my daughters in the face when they come home and have come home from hard days of trying to make new friends in a new school, or make friends in a new church, or make friends in a new community, or with new neighbors. I don't look them in the face when they're having a hard time, to not be able to tell them and not be able to bet on me that I believe are going to be successful. So, we're getting after it. That's just it. I'm going to keep getting after it. And I'm excited about telling that journey of, what that looks like for us here at Legacy. I'm excited about telling that to you guys and hearing from you in the same token. And that is me in a nutshell.
What is, if I can ask one question for, let's say a listener is maybe in the position that you were back in the trademark homebuyers, days.
Yep.
What's your one piece of advice for somebody that is maybe flipping houses and feels like they're just burned out with what they're doing right now?
It's a fantastic question. And I will say, I would even be willing to broaden the funnel to say, if you feel like you are where I was, where you're burnt out in general, and maybe it is the asset class of house flipping, maybe it's something else. Maybe it's just your own business of being an entrepreneur. I could use a lot of cuss words, but I'm not going to do that because I'm a person of faith. But do hard stuff. Okay. Do hard stuff. And that, let me make this actionable. When I realized that we were way too top heavy, we had way too much staff. Our meetings were super cool, by the way. I always talk about, and I reminisce with Javen and Hannah and everyone else that's on our team now, like how cool our meetings were back when we had 15 people. They were super cool, super fun, hip hop, just hype environment. And that hid the massive bleeding that was going on in the organization and in the company. It hid it. So what I mean by do hard stuff is the first person that you have to protect. The first thing in your own business that you have to protect is you, your family, your money, your household, you. So start with the book Profit First. That book talks about you got to take the money you need. You started the business to create financial freedom or success for yourself. Why do we always so aimlessly sacrifice that success on the altar of growing your team? Why? We don't do it on purpose. It's because we love, like, if you're like me, I love people. Like, I just don't see it that I love people. So what I would do is do hard stuff. If you think you're too top heavy, you're going to need to start thinking about, how do I make change here? And I'm not going to suggest that's let people go. I'm not going to suggest it's change some of the things you're selling. I'm not going to suggest that it's not sell less stuff, do more of the stuff you're better at. I'm not going to suggest it's not, some stuff that isn't pretty, but I will tell you that the clarity that comes from having a reset, a real reset, not a halfway one where you just did a few things that were uncomfortable. I'm talking an ugly reset is sometimes what it requires.
Make the hard decisions.
Yeah. Like Javen, and I can't wait for you guys to get to hear his story, but like, look at your life in the last year, how many decisions and things you guys did and how many hard chapters it's been. You've gone through this. Your kids, you're doing the same stuff.
Yep.
Like Javen was in the mission field in the Dominican Republic.
Lots of transition.
So, man, these chapters have been ugly and sad and painful for us, but my family and my future and my companies are in better shape and more robust and leaner and meaner and have more muscle than they ever have. So, I would just say, if there's nothing that was clear from that, smaller for a season is sometimes better. Smaller for a season is sometimes better. Cause like if you had, I always like, I've got a buddy right now that's growing a house flip business. Great dude. Love him to death. And I always tell him, because I believe, by the way, you can still make money flipping houses, right? I'm not just poo-poo on house flips. I am poo-poo on over leveraging yourself with too many people just because you're too good to go do the stuff that I was always too good to go keep doing, like being in Lowe's Friday night at 8 p.m. Well, if you're making, and I'm just going to give you a hypothetical, if you fired all your people and you're flipping two houses with you and just your wife, and you are at Lowe's Friday night at 8 p.m. and you're relay this to whatever business you're doing. You are doing the hard stuff, but you made $400,000 last year. Who's mad? No one's mad. No one's mad. Like, I don't think we give ourselves enough credit sometimes for, like, if you're making $400,000 or do whatever number you want to say, $250,000, dude, and you don't have systems. And like, this was us in 2016, flipped 9 properties. We were so mad because we had no systems. And me and my project manager, Tim Casto, shout out to Tim, we'd sit there on a folding table in a house and we would put together a scope of work. And then he and I'd, roll all the carts out of Lowe's, and it was an unorganized mess, right? We made like $360,000 or something that year in the company. It was like, who's mad at that? Who cares that you don't have systems? And I was just like, oh my gosh, we need to have this transactions coordinator. We need to have all these layers. Like, yeah, it's cool. But I always think, if you don't have payroll, here's maybe the litmus test for your business. If you don't have your own payroll in the company you currently have in your company for at least 6 months, I'd love to see 12, at least 6 months in your account, you can't hire anyone else. Sorry.
That's a good piece. That's a good piece.
You know, and Andy Stanley says it. We talked about it yesterday in our team. You can have control or you can have growth, but you can't have both. And I think the most dangerous part of having growth in a young company is you don't have the financial means to have the growth yet either. So continue to do hard stuff. Do the stuff yourself. Do it for a little while. I'm not against big businesses. I'm not. But I am against so many people that don't even serve their own goals because they started a business to serve their goals and their family, and they can just massively lose sight of that in their growth. I'm not for that anymore. We're not doing it. And Javen knows this. How often do we talk about, hey, man, we need to have runway in this company, right? That's what we're chasing. Money. We want to go hunting in October and not worry about when the next sale is.
Yep.
Well, you got to have runway. Like that, you got to have it or don't hire anyone. That's just my thoughts. I'm off my soapbox.
I love it. I think that's a great answer, is being willing to make those hard decisions and really check yourself on why you're doing what you're doing.
If you don't trust yourself and you're not analytical, then find someone who you do. I mean, of course, I'm happy to, you want to DM us, I'm happy to have that conversation, but I am no analytical guru. I've always leaned on people, but like if you actually have a good CPA or a good bookkeeper, or a good friend who you know is rich, go to breakfast, show them some of your bottom line, show them some of your payroll, or show them some of your expenses, or show them any of it. They'll find the bleeding for you. And listen, like actually listen and take the advice.
Mm-hmm.
It is so beautiful when you make enough money, but you don't have systems. It's just the hindsight of, it's a lot more like Javen. Can we not resonate that it's a lot more fun building a company when you have money, even though you don't have
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Like we're chasing systems now, but
at the end of the day, that's why you're working. At the end of the day, that's what you're working for is to make money and provide for your family, essentially. And if there's money there to be made and to provide, that's a huge driver.
Yep. So that is that. Hopefully this wasn't too long for you guys, but we're super, super excited about it. Got basically the outro here to closing this puppy out is, it would mean a lot if you guys would connect with us on any social platform, whatever is relevant to that platform, whether it's a like, subscribe, follow. It's going to mean a lot to us here at the Legacy Through Land podcast. If you will subscribe and follow, we are committed. And I'm holding Javen's feet to the fire here, and you guys can too, but we are committed to putting out one episode a week for the rest of this year. So these are going to start dropping March 1st. If you're in our inner circle, you get them early, but March 1st, we're putting this puppy out. We're committed to one a week after that. So we would love to hear from you. We would love for you to subscribe so that we can know that this stuff's actually valuable for you guys. And if the chaos of my story and my chaos that leads to Legacy Acres Land Company and ultimately, the strong side project of the Legacy Through Land podcast, you're going to have to come back because that was just the tip of the iceberg of all the stuff that we want to talk about, stuff we want to dive into, and the people we want to bring on.
That was something I was going to for sure mention is to, viewers or listeners can look forward to is specific topics on, what we're doing now and bringing specific guests on that can cover specific topics and people that we've learned from and that we lean on for information and everything else that I think is a huge value to any listener.
Yep. So I'll give a couple buzzwords and then we're going to call this an episode, but buzzwords for guests are, we've got some TV gurus that we're happen to be friends with that are very successful outdoor folks that are hunters. We're going to bring on, we've got some full-time timber people we're going to bring on. We've got some timber cruiser people that can help answer questions for you. We're going to bring on. We've got land lenders at Farm Credit. We're going to bring on. We've got high playing realtors in the land space that we're going to bring on. We're going to bring on brokers. We're going to bring on people that I know that have incredible, incredible journeys through hunting and how they've utilized land to create a true family legacy that anyone can look up to. They're coming on. So I'm just giving you some buzz, but we got some good stuff. So if you've enjoyed this, give us a like, follow, subscribe, whatever that button may be. And we'll see you next week on Legacy Through Land. And that's going to wrap up this week's episode. If you're finding value in this content, we'd love to hear from you. It'd mean a lot if you could share with us how this podcast is helping you on your journey and let us know of any topics you'd like us to cover in the future. Be sure to connect with us on all social platforms at Legacy Acres Land Co. and subscribe to stay updated on when new episodes drop. We hope you've enjoyed this week's episode of the Legacy Through Land podcast, and we'll see you next week.